I'm Gary Nickerson.
And I'm Quinn Taggart.
And this is Outside My Window. Well, we're close to outside my window. We're actually inside my apartment. Our special guest in this edition, this podcast, is the Honourable Zach Churchill. And Mr. Churchill, thanks very much. Your second time doing this. Good to have you in the kitchen, in the big red chair.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me in, guys. I really appreciate doing this with you. And Gary, I've missed you since you retired. I know I've mentioned that to you, but we had a lot of good chats on the Weekender, and always appreciated your approach to and professionalism with your journalism. And
well, we certainly appreciate your time here. And
absolutely.
And we're social distancing. We want to
yes.
We want to mention that.
We measured. It's over 6 feet.
Yeah, great
That's
job,
right. Yes,
guys. Thanks for having a safe space here to do this. And Quinn, good to see you as always, man. We'll hopefully see you back on Eastlink soon enough.
I'll tell you, it's been a huge gap in my quote-unquote social calendar. Not that I had much of one to begin with, but they did shut down the studio as a precaution, and hopefully, fingers crossed, now that we're into phase 3, that they'll find a way to open her back up here in a couple of months.
We're certainly getting there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We're going to get into some details about COVID and lots to talk about there. But Minister Churchill, I want to ask you, first of all, as you know, Canadians celebrated Canada Day recently, much different than in other years. Many Canadians took it as a day of reflection in the light of the tragedy of the discovery of hundreds of bodies of Indigenous children at various residential or former residential school sites. I do know that some years ago in Shubenacadie there was, I believe, a search done. Of course, technology wasn't what it was today. Any sense of what's happening on that site at this point?
I'm not certain what's happening there at this point, but obviously these revelations are catastrophic. This is a real tragedy. It was a system built on racist assumptions, and as someone who's a dad now and has 2 kids, I can just imagine the torture that whole process would have been for people, right? And all of us today can only imagine what it'd be like if authorities came to take your kids from you, and not knowing if you're ever going to see them again. And now looking back, knowing the statistics, I heard recently, it's a 50 to 60% chance that these children weren't going to return to their homes, and we're seeing evidence of that in a big way. So this is, it's very emotional. It's something that I think we do all have to come to terms with in our country, and hopefully use this revelation as a impetus to further our reconciliation efforts with our Indigenous friends and neighbors in this country. And I believe that we can do it. We are very lucky to be in a country where we can have this conversation, where our free speech is protected, and where we have become, I think, a more compassionate country in our later years that allow us to, treat this with the severity that it deserves, and hopefully continue to chart a course forward with, love and kindness in our hearts, and all do what we have to do to, move forward in a way that reconciles with our past and helps us build a bridge for a brighter future for all of us.
The province, the Nova Scotia government, and municipal units across Nova Scotia have certainly recognized the land of the Mi'kmaq that has not been ceded over, and many municipal units, including the town of Yarmouth, fly the Mi'kmaq flag of the Mi'kmaq Nation. So obviously there appears to be a concerted effort by government, politicians at all levels to work toward that long road of reconciliation?
I do think there's been recognition of these atrocities, and the starting points of moving forward on a path that is going to help us reconcile and come together and heal. And we've been very lucky here in Nova Scotia as a government to have incredible partners with our Mi'kmaq chiefs, who work with us on these things. They've worked with us to help us build treaty education in our schools, and to ensure that we're doing our part as a government to work with our Mi'kmaq communities and our broader communities to bring people together and move forward in a way that's productive. Because that's really important too. You can approach these conversations in a way that can be destructive, that cannot allow people to come together and heal. And sometimes if you let your darker emotions lead the way, that can happen very quickly. But what I've seen is incredible leadership from my experience here is with our Mi'kmaq leaders, with our local chiefs, Chief Deborah Robinson, who just hosted a walk on Canada Day. The approach is one of reconciliation on that side, and cooperation and partnership. And I think there's been exceptional leadership with locally here on that issue, and I think provincially as well. And that makes moving forward possible. We did experience a similar process with the School for Colored Children. Stephen McNeil was the first premier to actually take that on, recognize it as an issue for African Nova Scotian kids that were placed there, and we built a path of reconciliation with the African Nova Scotian community and survivors of that school, and I think that has really shown us that you can do this. You can do it in a way that's impactful, that brings all sides out on the other end in a better position. And I really do have a lot of confidence that we'll be able to do that with this question. I mean, finding these graves puts everything into a very stark perspective for people, right? And I think that's going to help even those that have some hesitancy on this issue or different political views on the reconciliation question. I think these revelations should put those perspectives in a much more, I think, important light.
And this shouldn't be a partisan discussion either, right? I mean, do all the parties align?
I mean, generally speaking, you'll see, I think, kind of the further right wings of parties, mostly federally, and the Conservative Party that you'll see resistance to or suspicion of this process with. But I think broadly speaking, Canadians are there on this question. We pride ourselves in having a heart and being compassionate, and many of us take pride in the fact that we've played a important role globally when it comes to peace and reconciliation, and we have to do it here at home too. And we have to come to terms with this and move forward in a way that's gonna make us all stronger. Particularly the our First Nations people that were impacted in a systematic way by this, by institutions that now we view as being there to protect us. And so I am hopeful, as sad as all this makes me. I think we need to be hopeful and confident ourselves in the fact that we can get there.
We look forward to hearing more from the government as time goes by.
Absolutely.
Certainly, they've got a little bit more work to do, but it's a I'm a parent as well.
I can't imagine it. I can imagine it. I can't imagine how I would react to it and how, I'll get filled up thinking about it.
Yeah.
What that would be like to experience that. And yeah, we have to do better.
Yeah. Despite all the COVID and everything else that's been in the news in the last little while, there's been a lot of things going on in our local area that I think we wanted to touch on as well. First up was just a follow up on something from back last year, and that's the ER renovation project for the Yarmouth Hospital. So the announcement was made back in February 2020, and do you have an update for us on that?
Yeah, we've got money allocated to that. They're currently working on the assessment to help with the planning. What are we going to need? How large does this need to be? What capacity do we need to have? Questions around staffing. These sorts of things are happening right now. So it's all preliminary work. But once this is done, we're going to get to the exciting part of this, and that's the design phase, and then of course eventually the tendering and building of a new ER. So I'm really looking forward to that. We are, probably a year, 2 years out to that project being completed. That's how long these projects take, unfortunately. But very much looking forward to that. Hopefully I'll still be around and be able to be at the ribbon cutting there when that happens.
Everybody's pretty familiar with the footprint of the ER as it sits right now. So is there room to kind of maneuver around?
Yeah, there's room there for expansion for sure. I know they're looking at a number of different options, but certainly it's possible, and it's going to result in larger space for patients that can better accommodate patient volume. That's going to provide more privacy and allow for better delivery of health services. So it's it's really exciting, and I think it's also important for new facilities are critical for doctor recruitment, retention, and of course to keep our other critical staff, our nurses and support staff, satisfied at work. They've got to have up-to-date buildings to work in, and that helps them do their job to the best of their ability.
Mr. Churchill, you were appointed Minister of Health at the height, certainly, of a global pandemic. And we've spoken about this before. I remember when you were appointed to as Minister of Education, we spoke about the learning curve. There's a lot to learn, even though you're an experienced member of Cabinet and have been for some time. But when it comes to health, and not just health, also mental health, mental wellness, what is that transition like, going from Minister of Education to Minister of Health in the midst of this health crisis?
Well, in education, we were dealing with the COVID situation as well, with our at-home learning plan when we shut down schools in the first wave, to building the back-to-school plan to get our kids back. So I did have some experience over the last year in education, working with public health, working with the IWK, and learning, of course, about the virus itself and keeping up with the science on it as best I could. So the transition hasn't been that difficult. I mean, here's what can make you a successful cabinet minister or premier or anything. It's your ability to synthesize information that you're getting, know which people to trust when it comes to getting information, not isolating yourself from information outside of your department either, making sure you're getting a broad base of perspectives, and making sure you're making informed decisions. So it's about synthesizing information, and then making the best call that you think you can make. So those are transferable skills no matter what department you're in, and which allows us to function in the system where you technically don't usually have technical experts in education or health or natural resources or anything as ministers. You have people that are elected that can come from any background. So being able to absorb information, synthesize it, and determine what the best course of action is. That's the job. So I would feel comfortable in any department that I was put in at this point, so long as there was good folks around and good information available.
Obviously, so many people have been have felt the effects of the stress related to the lockdowns and all that, not being able to see families during that period. And I was wondering about youth and the strain generally on the mental health system in this province, but there has always been discussion in the past about the lack of services for mental health for youth. We've chatted about that before. Can you kind of bring us up to speed on that, if you would?
Sure, that is an area of focus and development. Our system is very good at dealing with acute mental health illnesses. Folks that are dealing with those situations tend to get seen. They tend to get the support they need. Maybe not universally, but overall, the system's pretty good at responding to those situations. Where we need to see some serious improvement in the system, and where there has been some good improvement, is in that tier 2, what they call tier 2 mental health support. So the people that are feeling down, struggling with anxiety, who aren't dealing with an acute mental health illness, but who are dealing with stress, anxiety, low-grade depression. And this is the area where there's some real focus now on expanding services. So we've done, I feel, a very good job getting more of these services available to our youth through our schools. So through our inclusive education program, which I had the great privilege to oversee when I was at education. We've put hundreds of new human resources in place, so school psychologists, more counselors, child and youth care practitioners, autism specialists, behavioral specialists in our system. So there's been a solid infusion of mental health, behavioral supports, teaching and non-teaching alike. So I think that is, based on the feedback I've gotten, and I believe the data is playing out as well, we are seeing improvements in that area in our school system. COVID has definitely exacerbated mental health challenges that people are facing over the last year. So we did see an increase in demand for our crisis line, for example, by about 30%. So we provided more resources to the crisis line. And that's, of course, doing a better job dealing with the volume of people calling in there. We've hired more mental health clinicians in the province, 35, I believe, over the last year or two. And an area where, but there's also a shortage of some of these folks, right? So psychologists and psychiatrists, they're in high demand, and there's not a large supply of them. So you can post the positions, but you still need people to apply for them, and we're competing with other jurisdictions to get these people.
But that's a global shortage, isn't it, or at least a national?
It is, yeah. So I think one area where we can look at is trying to train more here, and I think that's an area where we need to look at moving forward. But utilizing technology now is key as well, right? So we're investing heavily in partnership with the federal government in expanding our virtual care. And so there's some key ways that I think people are going to see benefits from a healthcare perspective right now. One is in mental health. It's making mental health a lot more accessible to people. They don't need to have a psychiatrist in their community or home hospital. They can access mental health clinicians virtually. So we are expanding our virtual care programming, particularly around mental health. We're also doing that for our primary healthcare system as well, for those that are on the Need a Doctor registry. We're one of the only provinces that track the people who aren't registered to have a doctor, right? That's tough because you always take political heat when the numbers go up, but it gives us the bank of people who need a doctor. So we're running a pilot right now in Yarmouth, and in the northern part of the province, to get everyone who's on the Need a Doctor registry attached to a physician or nurse practitioner virtually while they wait. So there's going to be 3,500 people in Yarmouth who are on that Need a Doctor registry that will have access to a doc virtually for consultation, for prescription renewals, for referrals. They'll be able to order labs for them and stuff like that. So I'm really excited about that. It's not a replacement for a family physician. People at the end of the day are always going to need that physical checkup. Most people, the doctor's going to have to put her hands on you or check your pulse and all these sorts of things. But for that pressure of getting your prescription renewed, having an issue, wanting to chat to a physician about it, getting referrals, getting your blood work ordered, this can really be a game changer for those that are waiting to be attached to a family physician or a nurse practitioner. So I'm really excited about the opportunity for virtual medicine in the province for mental health and for primary care as well. So COVID has, of course, springboarded our efforts on this front.
Do you see that as a companion product to 811?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can call 811 if if you have various questions. If you have an emergency, you call 911. But this would be actually attaching someone that's waiting for a doc or a nurse practitioner or primary care, for permanent kind of primary care access. It would attach them to someone virtually. So that's, I think, a really exciting development that people are going to see the benefits of pretty soon. So if you haven't, for your listeners, if you're in Yarmouth and you're on that Need a Doctor registry and you haven't been contacted yet, they're getting through 250 to about 500 people a week, emailing them to get them on. So if you haven't received an email yet, you should in the near future. And there's 3,500 people on our Need a Doctor registry here in Yarmouth, and they're all going to be attached virtually to a physician while they wait for a family doc or a nurse practitioner.
So recently there was an announcement of an addition of 8 full-time Bachelor of Science in Nursing seats at the Dalhousie University Yarmouth campus. So with that in mind, it's great that we've got the additional training resources, the seats to be able to do that with. How do we get them to stay?
I think we're pretty good at that, actually. They've got a good retention rate, probably because a lot of people taking the Dalhousie nursing program are probably from the area to begin with. Like, it's accessible to people here. I've had family members that have taken that program, and of course, you can feed directly into the Yarmouth Regional Hospital, which is one of our, one of the best run hospitals in the province. So it's I think we do really well on that. And we do need, we do want more nurses right now. Particularly during COVID, people are overworked. People are put a lot of time in to support not just the COVID protocols, but also the other parts of the system that have kept running. So we want to make sure we're training more nurses, not just here. We put another we put 70 new seats in Cape Breton as well, nursing seats. So we want to make sure that we're training more folks to work here, and hopefully we'll keep up the success of retaining them.
How are we doing on doctor recruitment?
We're actually doing really well on doctor recruitment. So we recruit 130 a year. It's harder in certain areas. So in Yarmouth, for example, this has historically been an area that's harder to recruit and keep the family physician. That tends to be a bigger challenge in rural areas than in Halifax. So we've got we actually have more doctors per capita than any other province.
Really?
Yeah. Not just family doctors, that's including specialists and everything as well. There's some factors that impact that, like having the IWK, which serves the Atlantic provinces, that puts our numbers up. But we've actually done really well with recruitment. We've increased the remuneration for doctors pretty substantially. So we have the highest pay in Atlantic Canada for family docs, for emergency docs, also for anesthetists and for OBs as well. We've reduced the regulatory barriers to recruit international docs so they can train here. It's easier. So we're actually doing really good on the recruitment front, but the nature of practice is changing for new family doctors. So the reality of what we're dealing with is you've got the older generation doctors who are retiring. The big names around here would be like, the Websters, the Leahys, and these folks are taking 3, 4, 5,000 patients on. The way doctors are being trained now, the way they're practicing, is much more, patient focused. And they're also taking on other responsibilities in our education system, in our healthcare system. family doctors, so they're working in our emergency departments, they're working in our hospitals. So they're taking a much smaller, reduced patient load. It can be 400 or 500. And if every doc that we had did take at least 800 to 1,000 patients, we wouldn't have a wait list. So we're doing really well, but we're trying to adapt to this new the new reality of family practice, and we just can't approach access to primary care the same as we always have. So if the new reality around family practice isn't going to be thousands of patients attached to a single physician, then we have to look at expanding the scope of practice for other primary care practitioners like pharmacists, nurse practitioners, and utilizing other healthcare professionals a little more like optometrists. The specialty fields where people oftentimes get referred to anyway. So we've expanded the scope of practice for pharmacists. They can prescribe more. They can for certain medications. They can provide prescription refills. They can order labs. There's more work to be done, I think, on expansion on that front. We've done really well with nurse practitioners. We've over the course of our 2 terms in government, we've enhanced the nurse practitioner cohort by about 90%. So we've almost doubled the nurse practitioners that are practicing here, and we're providing training opportunities and upgrading opportunities for RNs who want to get there. Because nurse practitioners are there's 40,000 people that have chosen in Nova Scotia to have a nurse practitioner as their primary care provider, not a family physician. So we're leaning on them a bit more, and of course, virtual is going to help with this as well. So it's about adapting to this transition. It's not just, people think it's just doctor recruitment and retention, and that's certainly part of it. But we're doing really well there. Yeah. So it's about these, how do we adjust our system to the new nature of practice for family physicians.
With the video part, just one more section on that part. Do you think that that's an effective replacement or an effective methodology by which to interact with the patients?
It's certainly not a replacement. So, it's the virtual will not replace the importance of the physical part of checkups for people, right? Like, you want to have a doctor that can see you, that can put their hands on you, that can check your pulse and do whatever they have to do. But where I think it's going to help people is those folks that are, need a prescription renewal, need a lab ordered, need a referral, are having an issue that they need to talk to somebody about. It'll take pressure off our emergency departments, because people in our communities where there aren't walk-in clinics are going to our emergency departments for non-urgent or non-emergent issues, and that of course creates challenges for the system, and it's annoying for people and problematic. You got people waiting in there, you hear 18 hours, 20 hours, 14 hours, whatever, for a prescription renewal. So that will hopefully help with that part of the challenge.
You made a couple of very significant announcements recently, one here in Yarmouth and one outside of Yarmouth regarding cancer care. You talk about those, if you would.
Oh, that was really exciting. So both of them came out of that cancer care review that Dr. Bethune did, that I believe it was Randy DeLaurie, who was minister at the time, commissioned. And of course, I was actively advocating for it as well. So Dr. Bethune, who was the head of oncology, came into this, was very focused on ensuring that people in the western part of the province had appropriate level of access to cancer treatment. Brought in patients. Sandy Dennis, of course, would be the most well-known patient on that group, who unfortunately we've lost since to cancer. But an incredibly passionate advocate for this, and I know that if she could have seen the announcement, she would have been very, very pleased with it. Derek Lesser, current town councillor, was a part of it, as well as a lot of other local people from Yarmouth. So essentially, we're expanding the services available at Yarmouth Regional for cancer treatment, and that's going to help with like on the pharmacist side for medications. It'll help on the coordination side with Halifax. So there's nurses, pharmacists, and tech staff that are being hired from this. So the big thing it's going to do is create more cancer care here at home through Yarmouth Regional for people in this region. I heard Dr. Bethune say the day we made the announcement that this will this could reduce travel to Halifax for cancer care by about 1 million kilometers. So that's really exciting.
That is. That's going to be one of the larger concerns that most people have, is that, geez, I got to go to the city. How do I do that?
For a lot of people, it is, particularly people that aren't used to, I go to the city every week usually, so it's, I'm very comfortable with that. I think, there are a lot of people that are fine with that, but there's a lot of people that's a big, that presents a big challenge, either fear, impacting their work schedule. And there are some people that choose not to pursue what could be life-saving treatments because of this travel, right? So, this could save lives if people are able to pursue treatment that they otherwise wouldn't. So, I think this is a really important one for our area. Really happy to have gotten it over the finish line. We're up against a wall for an election at some point, so I don't know how long I have in the health department. So this was a priority for me to get over the finish line. And we did have another announcement this week on Monday, actually, that was related to this, increasing the income eligibility and travel subsidy for people who are traveling for cancer care. More people are gonna be able to access the subsidy. The travel subsidy and subsidy for their boarding and for ostomy services as well. And the mileage rate is going to go up. So people that do have to travel for cancer treatment, and there's still going to be most people that are going to have to do that, they will receive more financial support to assist them. As well, on the announcement we made on Monday, another really exciting one is for the first time we're going to be providing CAR-T therapy here for those. It's kind of a last effort therapy for those that are dealing with lymphoma. And previously we send adults to Boston for treatment in Boston, and now we're going to be providing that here in Nova Scotia. So that's another situation where we think double the amount of people are going to actually pursue this treatment who otherwise wouldn't have, because the travel to Boston was too cumbersome or expensive. So, this is really exciting stuff. This is what you get into politics for impact. So there's no shortage of ways to do that in the health department. So I'm quite pleased we've been able to get some important funding initiatives and program enhancements over the finish line so quickly.
Nova Scotia's COVID response has kind of been the envy of other provinces as well as globally, because I've heard it on the news in a variety of locations that, the focus has been on how we've handled the COVID response. Now, we had a chat with Dr. Strang last week, which was very informative. It gave him an opportunity to expand on some explanations that you don't always get a chance to do in a briefing, because the whole word is brief. But what's the tone going to be going forward? Certainly as things open back up, I hear testing numbers are now down. People don't feel like they need to do that if they've gotten the second shot, or even for the ones that have gotten the first shot, because we're at phase 3 and so on. So what do you see the protocols looking like as we move forward?
Well, certainly, hopefully we can avoid the types of restrictions that we've had as we hit the critical mass threshold for vaccination. I just got my second dose today, actually.
I'm scheduled for tomorrow.
Yeah, 2 months ahead of schedule for me. Like, we're really doing well in the vaccine role. The whole country is, but Nova Scotia's program is something that I'm really, really proud of. We're distributing vaccines everywhere in the province. We're utilizing pharmacies more than any other jurisdiction in the country, and that's allowing us to have more access and to vaccinate the whole province at around the same around the same rate. It is different from community to community, but that's not related to access. That's just related to people, showing up for the book the appointments or not. So I mean, I don't have a crystal ball here, so I don't know what this is going to look like. But I do know that even with the Delta variant at play, as soon as we get second doses in arms, that becomes less of a risk of transmitting it, and also of having severe hospitalizations as a result of it. So I mean, that's what really drives the public health policy, is the impact on hospitals and the ability for our healthcare system to respond to severe cases. So under Stephen McNeil's leadership and Dr. Strang's leadership and Randy DeLaury's leadership, who was the previous health minister, there was the focus on preservation of life and public health safety. So while other provinces tried to impact the economy less than we did, they ended up having more challenging situations with the virus. And what we've learned through this process, we didn't know this going into it, but strong public health policies, the strong restrictions, going hard and fast at this thing, has proven to be better economic policy as well. Because we're in a position where we've had a relatively good year compared to other places in the world, right? Like I've got friends in Quebec and Ontario that they couldn't leave their condo or house or see their neighbors for the whole year, right? And we've had a relatively normal year outside of the months for the first and third wave where we were locked down. So going fast and hard at it, beating it back really quickly, is not just good public health policy, but it's proven to be good economic policy, because our economy has recovered and is recovering at a rate that's better than our peers, certainly.
I don't think it's a surprise, though. I mean, certain sectors obviously took a huge hit, tourism being one of them,
Yeah.
restaurants and the like. But like you say, you gotta play the long game on something like this. And one of the comments I think I made in one of my posts was, Dr. Strang is a doctor. He's got your best interests at heart. It's not like he's just pulling the stuff out of his hat to go and throw it out onto the table, right? I mean, he's got everybody's best interests at heart.
He's focused on public health and safety, and focused on the science, understanding the epidemiology, and advising government to make decisions that recognize all of those things. So we've been very privileged to have him, and really all these folks people have been really supportive of the COVID response here in Nova Scotia. We've been really lucky. That's also a big part of our success here, is that there's public buy-in. People, I think, from day one said, okay, we've got to do our part here. That's not the case everywhere, right? You do have, you see some states that see the restrictions more on impeding their freedom, as instead of being, health and safety protocols like wearing your seatbelt and wearing a helmet and things like that. And there either wasn't public buy-in, or the chief medical officers were half run out of town, and there's places where you haven't seen the same level of support for this stuff, and they've struggled more with it for sure, and they've seen more fatalities as a result.
Do you think some of the protocols that have been put into place as our part of our COVID response will kind of stick around? A couple of things come to mind. One is booking blood work. There's nothing like doing the 6:30 a.m. number pull out of the turnstile and sitting there and waiting till you can get in. I really like the idea of being able to book the appointment. You show up, you're in, you're out. That comes to mind. And then also too, are snow days now gone? Because if you got a snow day, well, you can always do the virtual lessons.
We have the ability to see learning happen on those days. There might be a collective bargaining issue around
Maybe.
Around that, right? So, but in terms of the technological advances that we've seen in health, around booking, in education with at home education delivery, I mean, yeah, these things are going to stick around. Are we going to always be wearing masks and social distancing and stuff? I hopefully people will be a little more
vigilant
when they themselves are sick and contagious. All of us would go to work when we have colds and cough into our sleeves or whatever, but still shake hands and eat lunch with people, so, and not wear a mask. So, you know, there may be some changes in our culture around that. You know, we've always, you know, seen, you know, Asian people wearing masks at airports when they're traveling and stuff like that. And that always seemed to be a foreign kind of notion, I know, to many of us. And, you know, why are they doing that? But, okay, to protect other people and themselves. So, you know, there might be some cultural adjustments that we make. Certainly people are shaking hands a lot less. You know, we're doing the elbow bumps, the fist bumps, and it's different, but it's probably a good thing. To be more aware of how we spread germs and viruses and bacteria to each other, and be more cautious with our interactions. I think that will help us overall. Influenza, we didn't have any influenza.
Well, I was going to ask that. Like, what were our numbers? Because I would suspect they were nigh on zero, weren't they?
So I heard Dr. Strang say that there wasn't any influenza in our province this year, right? So there's
well, that certainly proves the hand washing and all the other protocols work.
Masking and social distancing as much as possible, and even having some of the plastic barriers up at, you know, grocery stores and places of work. The new protocols in place with dentists and optometrists and massage therapists, physiotherapists. We haven't seen spread in those areas, right? And you think about what dentists are doing, that's quite an achievement. The dentists are in people's mouths. They're you know, you can't hide from saliva or droplets. So they've managed to, there's another example of kind of innovation and changes that have had that are going to stick around, are those precautionary measures that we have in place there that will keep people safer from infectious disease and maybe even the common cold and the flu.
Yeah. You know, and that was one of the things that, you know, when you look at all of the protocols that people keep saying are good during flu season, wash your hands, stay home if you're sick, all of those things were part of the COVID response. So now people are, you know, paying attention to it, and they're doing it, and oh, look, no flu, very little colds. I usually have at least 2 or 3 a year. I haven't had a cold in 18 months.
And I bet that when you did have it, if you weren't too sick, you'd still be out and about and doing your thing and not really worrying too much about transmitting it to other people, right? I mean, I that's how.
Yeah.
I don't like admitting it, but I mean, I
work from home, so.
Well, you're lucky, yeah.
You know, I started working from home actually prior to COVID because we had kind of run out of space in our office spot, so we were in the middle actually of an office reno for my day job at the time COVID came in. So we've managed to get all the office reno done and everything else, but we're not staffed back into the office yet. We're not driving hard on that aspect of it. I got to give my day job company credit for that. But certainly, you know, the comforts of working from home is that, again, not much of a sick day unless you're really like knocked out.
Well, and what a change is happening there. You know, realizing that, okay, we all don't have to be piled into these offices. Maybe people can work remotely. That's impacting our economy
and still be effective.
Yeah, and that's impact. We've been running government virtually for the last, you know, number of months, and it's proven to be, in from some ways of looking at, a lot more efficient. But it's also impacting our economy really well. Like here in Yarmouth and provincially, we've got people moving from big cities into rural areas in Nova Scotia. We've seen this incredible real estate boom here that came out of COVID. That's not something any of us anticipated, for sure. And that's certainly helping us. That has helped with our economic recovery. And our population's growing at a rate now that we haven't grown in a while. And of course, we've seen property values go up. So there's a lot of changes, I think, that are going to happen, and it'll probably be as permanent as anything is permanent in this world.
Well, and you brought up a good point when you were mentioning about housing. So certainly we've had a shortage even before COVID came about. Now it's even worse, and rents have skyrocketed just as much as housing costs.
Well, rents have been there's been a cap on rental increases for the last year. That's been a government policy. which is designed to protect the renter, of course, but also
But that does have an end date, though, right?
it does. So yeah, once the emergency measures out, and that probably does impact supply a bit too, because when you cap rents, it makes the investment for investors or developers riskier. So we certainly do have a supply issue for housing. Government does provide a pretty generous grants for developers that want to build affordable housing. They can get up to $50,000 a unit for a major retrofit of a building that wasn't a housing building before, or if they build something new. And we've certainly seen some development here in Yarmouth. We've seen all the senior complexes that have gone up. We are going to see the old high school renovated. There's government money going into the affordable units there. And the town also, I think, the town also contributed financially to that project. So we're going to see some development, but that doesn't deal with the immediate day-to-day when people are looking for an apartment. And I definitely get calls in my office of people that are worried about where they're going to live next month if the apartment they're in isn't going to be available.
So circling back to doctor recruitment, we do have an option on that one because they're building a new spot that's hopefully going to be used for that.
Yeah, well, that proved it. We invested in that local community navigator position and the Chamber's project to provide some more local support to doctor recruitment and retention, and that proved to be a real good investment from the province and from the municipal units as well that invested in it, and the Chamber. And it resulted in the credit union building a brand new building to provide housing for residents and docs that are training here, and hopefully that will stay here. So there's a nice domino effect that happened with just a little bit of money. I think $75,000 is what we put into it. Municipalities put some money into it. The Chamber did, and that now we have a $500,000 build going on Vancouver Street.
Well, if we can get lumber prices to come back down to reality, then that won't be so bad, right?
Yeah, that's been a rush for sure.
It's amazing the spikes and valleys of some of the supplies. Certainly toilet paper and paper towel were the first things to go. Then yeast and flour, because people were home cooking instead of going out and about. I mean, it
did weird things to a lot of different markets, from the stock market to the lumber market, for getting parts to get your vehicle fixed. I mean, COVID's impacted everything, every single thing.
I didn't mind 65 cent a liter gas, but then of course I couldn't go anywhere.
You have to go anywhere. Yeah, maybe we all should have stockpiled.
That wasn't going to last forever.
We all should have stockpiled.
Yes, I did think of that. Gary, go ahead.
Ms. Churchill, I'm glad you mentioned about all those initiatives, and what's so impressive is the partnerships between private business and the Chamber of Commerce, which is a fantastic organization. I think, I'm speaking personally, they do some wonderful work, and the support of the other levels of government. We, as you mentioned, with that doctor's residence, we see that with the Mariner Center expansion and the former YMCA facility and all of that. It's very exciting. But being a former journalist, you mentioned the E word, so I have got to ask you about a pending election, and how pending is it?
I mean, I'm preparing for it to be imminent. We're into our fourth year now. We're coming out of a pandemic, so we don't know what the future is going to look like, if there are going to be kind of more waves or not. It seems like we're not going to experience that if we get to the vaccination threshold that we need to get to, and we are getting to that pretty quickly. And Delta is the only real kind of imminent threat from a COVID perspective, the Delta variant, because the first dose isn't sufficient to protect us from it. So I do think we're going to beat the race there, but you don't want to be in a position where you wait too long and then we're in lockdown again and can't have an election. So we have to have an election within the next less than a year now.
What's the drop dead date on that one?
My memory, 2017 was when we were elected last, and was that a May election?
So it's early 2022.
I'm sorry
is
if I'm
the
getting that
drop
wrong.
down.
I think it was a May election, but yeah, so
I think you're right.
we're getting into it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And you tend to see governments go on their fourth year. They don't wait for five, usually. So I think we're going to be in one soon.
So with that in mind, what sort of options are there for folks at this point in order to be able to vote? Certainly with the municipal elections, they kind of moved to an online or telephone voting system. There was a few glitches with that sort of thing, but what's the province looking to do to help alleviate the folks that might be a little skittish about getting out and about?
Well, I mean, following the health and safety protocols, of course, is paramount. So wearing your mask when you're voting, other people are wearing their masks, socially distancing in the lineup. So the election's not going to be digital. It's going to be a paper ballot as it has been. But just like when you're going in to get your prescription or going to the doctor's office or whatever, we have new protocols in place that keep people safer. So, and they're working. We've even having our kids back in school. We didn't see very much spread in school. So these new protocols we have in place are pretty effective at limiting spread. So people will be able to vote as traditionally as they do. They'll be able to vote at the returning office any day of the week, usually when the returning office is open, maybe except Sunday. And so if you want to avoid a lineup or anything like that, usually popping into the returning office on your coffee break or lunch break or whatever is an easy way to do that. And of course, there's mail-in ballots. And Elections Nova Scotia will be, communicating with the public in terms of how they're able to vote. So they are independent from us as a government, and they run these elections independently. And I know they've taken some additional steps to ensure that people are able to get out and vote and do so safely.
I've always admired people who decide to get into public life. You couldn't pay me enough to be a municipal councillor or a provincial MLA or a federal member of parliament. You're open. Once you enter that field, and especially nowadays with social media and all of that, what makes you continue doing what you're doing? And you're a hard-working representative. You've always been a hard-working MLA, and I'm not just tossing stuff here.
That's
I know
kind
that
and generous of you to
personally.
say,
You're a
Gary. Thank
hard-working. Every portfolio you've had. Why do you keep doing that? You've got a young family that's growing very quickly. I noticed in the
Yeah.
pictures, but it's got to be tough on the family too.
It's certainly you had more time to kind of do everything when I was a bachelor in my late 20s, right? So it is different with the family, and my ability to kind of be on the hustle all the time and getting out to every single event and all that sort of stuff is different. And I do prioritize some more time with the family nowadays. But certainly I really enjoy the work, and the satisfaction I get from it is impact, making that difference. Like some examples we've had here where I'll look back on, I think later on in life at my career and say, okay, we did some really important things there. From keeping the riding of Yarmouth together. We almost lost a seat in the legislature. Getting the ferry returned here. Reshaping the governance and administrative structure of our education system, which needed to happen. Bringing in pre-primary, a program that now every 4-year-old in the province is able to access for free. My girl's going to be in it. My oldest is going to be in that next year. Bringing in the inclusive education program and deploying hundreds of new mental health behavioral experts in the system, getting in health and overseeing in part not just myself but the Premier, myself, Dr. Strang, working to oversee the COVID response and beating back a third wave. Like these sorts of like moments of impact where you get a project over the finish line or an investment over the finish line. like the cancer care announcements we made earlier. I mean, that's where I really get the highest level of satisfaction. That's what I'm in it for. That's what drives you. So you do have to put up with, so like any job, you've got challenges in any job, right? So there's certain challenges in this job. People are always looking to dig up dirt on you. You're never going to make everybody happy. Somebody's always going to be upset with you, and I've gotten better at kind of managing those sides of the job over the years. But man, when you make an announcement that we're getting new staff to expand cancer care in Yarmouth, it's like, yes, that's what I do this for. And I love working with people, generally. I can't say I love working with every person, but generally I get energy from being with other people, communicating with other people, getting to know them, and being a provincial politician. And I have loved the opportunity to meet so many different people in my community and beyond, seeing people at the same community events every year, our kids growing up together. You know what I mean? I love that. I love that part of it too. Yeah. The connections you're able to make. So those would be the two things I think that make it all worth it for me, for sure.
I remember the first time I talked to you was in an official capacity, I guess you'd say. It was many years ago when you were with the Student Federation.
Yeah. Not the CFS. I was with the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. And that was very evident how much you liked working with people and getting things resolved. But it's your job, whether MLA or cabinet minister, it's 24/7.
Well, it can be. I mean, you're certainly, depending on what portfolio you're in, like it's been, we're particularly over the last number of months, like I've got to be on my phone all day and in the night, right? We're making decisions pretty rapidly, and of course you always have to be there for your constituents or they're not going to have you back. So keeping up with correspondence and calls and getting out to the events that people want me at, yeah, that's a big part of it. But it's also stuff I really enjoy. So I've been able to do this for 11 years now. When I started off, Gary, I remember the first time that we chatted is when I was running. I never knew at that point that I'd be part of two majority governments, and with a fighting chance to get a third term as well. I think we do have a fighting chance to get a third term. And I never realized how much I'd be involved with, at that point. I just wanted to represent Yarmouth, get the ferry back, but since then I've been able to do a lot more things hopefully for the community. I hope people see that, and also for the province, and it's been very, very rewarding, man. Yeah, some tough moments in it for sure. The teacher battle was tough on me. I got a lot of friends that are in that sector, and that affected some relationships. And of course, there's always someone that's not happy with you. So, but I've learned to manage, in my own head those situations, I think more productively. And you have to focus on not people's opinions of you, but your duty to them when you do this work. And if getting your head in that space, makes everything easier.
I want to ask you about the upcoming campaign once that gets underway, once the Premier visits the Lieutenant Governor and the writ is dropped and all of that. Do you foresee a different kind of campaigning? I mean, usually when during a traditional campaign, particularly this time of year, we've got what we like to call the barbecue circuit, fundraisers and all of that. Might it be a bit different?
I think so. I mean, I've been trying to think about how to approach that, because I mean I've always focused on door knocking, community events, being with as big a group of people as possible, and I think not everyone's going to be comfortable with that. So I think there probably will be a bigger focus on kind of virtual means of communication for me. But also, I'll feel the doors out. I'll knock on some doors and see how people are responding to it. And if I get the sense that people are uncomfortable with that, I'll probably stop. But I definitely will we'll start off with door knocking and that sort of stuff. But we can reach people with phones, emails, social media. So we'll utilize all those other tools that we have too.
Everybody deserves a break. So of course, it'd be nice for you to have a little bit of a break over the summer while the weather's good. What's on your staycation list for the summer?
Well, I don't know that I'm going to have the opportunity this summer, but hypothetically, if we were able to take some time off, there's definitely some places I want to see in Nova Scotia that I haven't seen yet. Getting into the La Have area on the South Shore would be really, I think, interesting. I know my wife would appreciate if we got to that Nordic spa in Chester. Yes. That's a pretty cool spot. I always love the Valley. Cape Breton's fun. I don't know. We haven't planned anything yet because you're not really able to do that when there's an election hanging over you. But once we get through an election, then maybe we'll. Or if it becomes apparent that we're not going to have one imminently in the summer, then we'll sit down and chat about it. But actually, the first thing we're going to do is go out to my camp.
Right. In
East Kemp. We've got a little camp there. No running water or anything. It's rustic. But I grew up out there with my grandfather, Wilfred. He had a camp out there. My family goes out there in the summertime. So that's a really special place for my family on Mom's side. And that'll probably be the first thing we do is get out there. There's no self-service out there.
I was going to ask whether or not it was off the grid or not, because you certainly deserve to be off grid for a bit.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's kind of you say. Listen, I enjoy my work. I'm happy to be doing it, and I've got a really supportive a wife who is. There's no issues. Everything's good, and I'm able to do my job to the best of my ability and have family support, and we make it work.
You've had some experiences over the last few years. I mean, you rappelled down the side of a skyscraper in the city, and
yeah, I don't know why I said yes to that one. But,
so somebody roped you into that? Is that how it worked?
Well, it's like you want to. That stuff's fun, right? I did the Jack in the Box thing for the Memorial Club a number of years ago. I'm scared of heights. So
are you really? Oh, okay.
I'm getting better now that I've challenged myself a few times. But so there might be some kind of overcoming that fear.
So skydiving's not on your bucket list?
It always has been, or it was when I was younger anyway. I felt like I was up for all this stuff in my 20s. Now that I'm 37 and have kids, I'm like, I don't know if I needed to skydive. I don't know if I might just take that off the list.
If Ryan Shea can go out and do a skydive, Zach Churchill can do it.
Ryan's an incredible, impressive,
he is.
Driven person, and I think he might have less fear in him than I do. But no, the rappelling thing was definitely absolutely terrifying.
So what's on your bucket list?
I do like traveling internationally, so I'm looking forward to the world kind of opening up again and being safer, hopefully. I'd love to see Japan. I've never been there, but I hear incredible things about it, and I'd love to get through more of Europe. I like doing those. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that, and I've done that with some of my friends since we were in university together. Some buddies from Yarmouth. We have done like a trip every now and then. We used to do it every year, but we've all kind of grown up and have kids now. But hopefully that'll turn into family trips. So I mean, I do hope to be able to do that again at some point, and we do save for that to make sure we have the means to do it, and we're privileged to have the means to do it. But that's definitely I love doing that sort of stuff. Discovery. I love discovering new things and places.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mr. Churchill, it is always a pleasure to speak with you. It's always great to have you here with us, Quinn, and I appreciate your time very much. I'm the shameless one in this duo, so I'm going to say next time you come in, maybe you could drop your mom a hint for some Lebanese food.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Just saying.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Just saying.
Just got to mention it.
Okay, well, listen, that's good to know. Do you have any favorites? Do you like?
I like it all.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Gary's been my faithful taste tester of all of my cooking experiments.
Yeah.
And he hasn't rejected anything yet that I know of.
Well,
No,
actually,
nothing.
Her Worship, Pam Mood, who's also a distant cousin of mine. We're both come
Yes.
from Lebanese ancestors. I learned how to make grape leaves on Eastlink.
That's
did.
one of my, oh yeah.
Yeah, Quinn, you were there.
Yeah, I was there.
You watched me chop half my finger off.
What's I,
I wasn't going to bring that up, but since you mentioned it, yes, I did.
Yeah,
yeah, I heard that story.
yeah. So if you guys like grape leaves, I can do that.
One of my favorites, yeah.
Yeah,
It was good.
We still make we still do a big Lebanese food every now and then. At my cousin has kind of taken over as providing the family venue for us to get together on
Nice.
Sundays. It used to be my grandparents, obviously, but they're not with us anymore. So my cousin Joseph has taken over that role, and there's usually a Lebanese feed there every now and then. I can also pick you guys stuff up from the city.
That's great.
Or the farmers market. There's great Lebanese food down at Yarmouth Farmers Market. I was
That
just
is
there
true.
Yeah. Oh,
on
is there? I
Saturday,
didn't know that.
and I don't know if they're I don't know if they're Lebanese, the folks selling it, but it was kibbe, fatoyas, samosas, all kinds of stuff down there at the market.
Nice.
So
I'll have to go down and look.
yeah,
Very good.
among a lot of other great things down there. We've got a great
There are
farmers
there.
market,
Yeah, the farmers market is
Oh, that's a great
definitely
spot, it
a
is.
good pillar.
Yeah, it's super.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks,
Mr.
guys.
Churchill, thank you so much. Our special guest has been the Honourable Zach Churchill. He is, of course, the MLA for Yarmouth and former Minister of Natural Resources, Municipal Affairs, Communications Nova Scotia, Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development. Currently, he is Nova Scotia's Minister of Health and Wellness and the Minister responsible for the Office of Mental Health and Addictions. A busy man. I'm Gary Nickerson,
And I'm Quinn Taggart.
and this has been Outside My Window.